The trail is a metaphor for change. Although hiking, and specifically endurance hiking, is now a big part of my day-to-day, it's not just about exercise. It's about transformation. Each step is a movement towards clarity, purpose, and identity. But movement is one thing, sharing insights gained is another. As a U.S. Marine veteran, I created this space to help other veterans gain clarity, purpose, and identity. Let's walk this path together. This is Trail to Transformation.
Most people aren't broken, they're just dysregulated. Chronic stress, pain, anxiety, and burnout aren't mindset failures. They're nervous systems stuck in survival. I'm Leland Holgate, combat veteran and neuroscientist, and I created the Welcome Home method to help people rewire their nervous systems with breath. And to go deeper, visit thewillfulwarrior.com.
Welcome back to Trail to Transformation. While Keith is out on the trail, I'll be one of your guest hosts. I'm Suzanne Jabour, joining you from Vancouver, Canada. I'm a grief guide, educator, author, and speaker, and I talk all things grief. Joining me today for part 2 of our conversation is my wonderful friend and colleague, Amy Blake. She's going to introduce herself, and then we'll get right to it. Welcome, Amy. Thanks for joining us again.
Thank you, Suzanne. Hi, everybody. My name's Amy Blake. I am in Maine in the U.S., and I am a social worker by training. I work deeply and widely in the fields of transforming trauma and helping people grow healthy relationships. And I also do quite a bit of transformational coaching and conscious leadership work. I'm really glad to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm so glad you could join us. When I got this opportunity to do some episodes for Keith while he's walking the trail, I knew I had to have you. So I'm so excited to continue with part 2 of our conversation. When we were chatting in between episodes, we realized that we really wanted to talk briefly before we get into some practices that you can use to help your system regulate about the current situation that we're facing with collective trauma. For me, I see it as through the lens of collective grief. And that intergenerational piece, that intergenerational trauma we didn't touch on last time either. Can you talk to us a little bit about those two before we move into sort of some of the exercises and practices we can be using to help ourselves stay regulated in this time that feels almost impossible?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So the idea of intergenerational trauma is the idea that in the field of epigenetics, that trauma can transfer generation to generation, and it goes like 5 to 7 generations deep. So if we think about that, every one of us on the planet has had somebody in the last 5 to 7 generations that has experienced a war, has experienced trauma. So the idea that there is this intergenerational trauma that's really actually a collective trauma because we've all experienced something in some way, shape, or form. It's pretty sobering. It's very sobering in terms of like how deep this runs and how pervasive it really is. So that's one thing, I think, is that you don't have to have had something happen to you to be having a trauma response in this day and age. It could be in your DNA, it could be that this has gotten passed down in some way. Collective trauma, on the other hand, is really when whole swaths of people go through something at the same time, which we kind of are in the world right now. And so what's challenging about that is that at every level, including the people who are here to help, are experiencing the same thing at the same time. This is what happens in natural disasters. war, collapse of society, all these big things that happen, and we're all going through it. And yet, and so I think it makes it harder for the help to arrive, because the help is also still is challenged. Um, so that's what I wanted to say
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. And it's so important, that intergenerational piece to me, when I started learning about that, understanding it more, for me in a weird way was really freeing, because I don't feel like I have experienced a lot of trauma personally, but I still get those activated responses where it's like, well, where did that come from? Like, why am I reacting like that to this thing that my, rational brain knows is not that big of a deal? And it was really freeing for me to understand that, like, it might not even be mine. Like, that reaction, as you say, is coming from my great great grandpa's grandpa. Like, it's a
Mhm.
long ways back. And when we think generationally, whether it's a war or a famine or some kind of natural disaster, pretty much everywhere on the planet in the last 5 to 7 generations, something along those lines has happened. It's happened in some communities much more than others. So we can see the impact of that in Canada for sure. We see it with our First Nations community, where that intergenerational trauma, of literally being persecuted and stolen from your families and all of those things is still playing out. And if we don't understand that intergenerational piece, it's really hard to understand the results that we're seeing, the consequences that we're seeing at the level of the people who are, my contemporaries, for example, that weren't maybe directly impacted by that trauma, but their parents were, or their grandparents were, or their great grandparents. And the collective piece, what really struck me when you were describing that in a way that I hadn't heard it before, or it hadn't landed before, is that we're relying on the helpers to come help us, and they are also being traumatized.
Mm-hmm.
So that we can then see that sort of inhuman ask. And I think for me, that was laid bare the first time during the pandemic, where we were watching healthcare workers really being asked to do inhuman things to save us all, right?
Mm-hmm.
To save our loved ones, to save people that were really ill. And they're in the same stew of trauma and chaos that we all were, but they're having to also perform at a really high level. We could talk about this topic forever and ever, you and I, and we will talk many more times about it, I'm sure. But I want to make sure today we make some time to really talk about some of the things that we can be doing. So can you share with us a little bit, sort of the at-home things that as lay people we can be doing to just help ourselves get through this time with a little bit more ease?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the at-home self-care, everybody. Sleep. You have to sleep. You have to sleep. Get good sleep. If you're not getting good sleep, you need to get help with that. People say, oh, I only need 2 hours of sleep. I only need 3 hours of sleep. The people who promote that end up with dementia. So the brain really needs us to have good sleep. We need an opportunity to go through the deep layers of sleep where the processing can really happen. So that's one. And good food, good whole food. The nutrition piece is really, when I started working on my nutrition, I wanted to go back to a lot of people and say, sorry, that was my blood sugar. My blood sugar was in my toes. I'm really not that nasty of a person. So and how feeling stable, there's such a connection in terms of how we're eating and how we feel emotionally and our inner stability. And then the exercise, the movement. So I wanted to start with those basics. Those are super basic things that it's really easy to forget about. It's really easy to not address. What we're going to talk about is more practices. So there's breathwork practices, there's focusing practices, and I want to take you through some of those, and then I've got some others, depending on our time, what we can talk about. So the breathwork practice that I want to invite you into today is one that's called the perfect breath. So there's been a determination that the perfect breath is 5.5 breaths in and 5.5 breaths out. So when your breath is even in breath to out breath, it's a stabilizing. It's kind of like helps you stabilize. if you're super jacked up and you want to calm down, you want longer exhales. Or if you're feeling a lot of fright, you're feeling triggered, you're feeling, fright come in, then you want your exhales to be longer, and that's a releasing breath. It's releasing some of the trapped, whether it's trauma or just the energy that needs to be released. And then some people's nervous systems are like dead, like we've rolled over
Yeah.
and we have said enough, and I give up. And those systems, guilty as charged, are more on the cold side. Like our bodies go cold. It is a preparing there on some level. Like the deep dorsal vagal response is like, okay, I guess nothing else is going to work. I guess this is where I die. And so the body's kind of preparing. And so those systems need a little energy, like they need to be energized. So we're going to do a practice that takes a look at how we can do that as well. But breath wise, because that's what I was talking about, shorter breaths out, longer breaths in can help the heat. And there's a lot of other practices you can look at. Practices, how do I increase my energy, how do I calm my energy? And it has to do with, there's alternate nostril breathing. There's a lot of different ways of going about that. But let's start with a perfect breath. How does that sound?
That sounds amazing. I need some calming. I'm going to get all settled in my chair and ready to breathe.
Okay, great. So I just want to invite you to feet on the floor. Just feel the soles of your feet on the floor. Feel your butt in your chair. Just feel how your body is being held by your chair. And I'll just count it out. So take a couple of nice deep breaths. And breathing is always personal. You might not be able to do the 5 count. Don't worry. I don't want you to pass out and fall over. If you've eaten something heavy, it's going to be harder to breathe. So, just pay attention to where your body is and do what is comfortable for you in this moment. All right. So nice deep breath in. Let it out. And then just come to normal breaths and I'll do the counting. So breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then just bring your breath back to normal breathing. And you can do this with eyes open or eyes closed, whatever you're comfortable with when you do it. So I always like to do a little what we call me search, Suzanne. So if you want to check in with your body and just see, what did you notice? Did anything shift or change for you, if you care to share?
Yeah, for me, the change I always feel is in my shoulders dropping, almost always, if I'm doing any kind of breath work, because I'm one of the many people that carry a lot of my tension in through my shoulders. So they're often in a state of tension. And I'll feel that. I also, interestingly, this time, really felt a relaxation through my belly and diaphragm area. I was holding some tension there. And a little bit in my lower back, like that sort of back part of the ribs, that when you're doing that really full breath into your lower lobes of your lungs, like we need that expansion there. And I've been really working on that lately, because I know with grief, so much we carry it in our lungs and we often lose our big breath capacity into those lower lobes. So that's what I was working on. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I have a question, because I know other people will be wondering too. Obviously, with alternate nostril breathing, you have to be breathing in and out of your nostrils. Otherwise, is sort of generally in through the nose, out through the mouth. Does it matter? Do we need to worry about it?
Thanks for bringing that up. Definitely in through the nose. So the nostrils have these turbinates that moisturize the air, which is really good for your throat and your vocal cords. If you're a mouth breather, that's not a great thing. So one of the downsides of being a mouth breather is that it's like putting a hair dryer in your throat, in your mouth, and turning it on high. It will dry out the back of your throat and your vocal cords. We do not want that to happen. So
Mm-mm.
breathing out through your nose or your mouth, whichever you prefer, is fine in this exercise.
Okay.
Now, obviously when you're doing the alternate nostril breathing, that's nose stuff. But this one,
Yeah.
it's whatever's comfortable for you, and you can try it different ways. So try in through your nose, out through your nose, and then in through your nose, out through your mouth a different time, and just see what's the difference for you. I know
Mhm.
for me, I like breathing out through my mouth better than back out through
Mhm.
my nose. But sometimes I practice with just my nose breathing, just to have a different experience. I think it's just a different experience. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. I sometimes get
Yeah.
all in my head about that, so I wanted to know.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it up. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. This next one we're going to do is called a tour of the senses. And the senses
Mm.
that we are going to tour with are seeing, and we do it two ways. We see out. So I'm going to have you notice what's around your room. And when I say see out, you're going to land on an object and just kind of stay there until I say see out again. And then we turned it inward. So I'll have you close your eyes and turn inward. And the seeing in is on the back of your eyelids. And it might be colors. There might be a movie running,
Mm.
images that flash. So that's the seeing in. We'll go through that. And then the next one is hearing. We'll hear out the sounds in the environment. And then we'll hear in. And the hearing in can be the inner dialogue. It might be a monologue. It might be a dialogue. Or it might be some beautiful silence. And we can just enjoy the silence. And then it's feeling. And that's the felt sense of the environment against our body. Clothes on our skin, temperature of the air on the skin. And then feeling inward, which is the emotions we might be feeling or the body physiology on the inside. So I'll walk you through each phase of this, and we'll go on a little tour here. How does that sound? Do you have any questions before we begin?
Nope, that makes perfect sense.
Okay, great. All right. So I want to just invite you to take a nice breath, and we're going to start with seeing out. So keep your eyes open and see out. And as you're seeing out, you're going to land on something that catches your eyes, and you're just going to stay there for a moment. See out. And now you can move to another object in your environment and just land there. See out. See out. And now we're going to turn our attention inward. So I invite you to close your eyes. It's easier to see inside when you have your eyes closed. And see in. And here you might notice shadows, color on the back of your eyelids. There might be images. There might be a movie running. See in. See in. See in. And now we're going to go to the next stop on our tour, which is hearing. You can leave your eyes closed if you like, or open them. Hear out, and this is the sounds of the environment. Hear out. Hear out. And now bring your attention inward, hearing in. The sounds on the inside, which might be a monologue, a dialogue, or a silence. Hear in. Hear in. Hear in. And now we're going to go to the last stop on our tour, which is to feeling out. So here's where you're feeling the environment in contact with your body. You might feel your feet on the floor, the feel of your body in your chair, your clothes against your skin, the temperature of the air against your skin. Feel out. Feel out. Feel out. And now I'm inviting you to switch your attention inward, and here's the feeling in, which is emotions or body physiology, kind of the physical experience on the inside. Feel in. Feel in. Feel in. And just take a moment here. When you're ready, take a nice breath. Before you open your eyes, you can do a little more me search and just see what you notice as a result of that little tour of the senses. And when you're ready, you can come back up. Yeah, what'd you notice?
Oh, I love that one. That's really juicy. You know what I noticed at the very end, because I was talking before about my shoulders, I felt my shoulder blades flatten down to where they're actually supposed to be, like come flat against my back. It's like, oh, there you are. And I realized how rarely I feel them that place. That's probably not so good. I need to do more of this.
But nice noticing, nice noticing.
Yeah.
So the tour of the senses can be done as long as you want, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, or it can be done we did about 3 or 4 at each stop, in and out. So it can be done in the background. This comes from a form of meditation called unified mindfulness, if anyone wants to look more deeply into it. I like it a lot because it's a different kind of focusing. And I think it gets us around things that when we're trying to do breath work, we get hung up inside our brain sometimes with. So I want to very quickly jump into the last thing that I wanted to share, which is called Fists of Fury. We might not be able to do a full practice, but I just want to show this one so people know, because this is about, it works in 2 ways. So if you need to bring your energy up, you can do this, or if you're just like, you need to calm down a little bit, like you're really over the top, this can work. For some reason, it works in both ways. So I want to make sure I don't hit my microphone here. But what we're going to do, what you do with this one is you pull back, you breathe in, and then you breathe out. You could do it really fast where you're breathing in halfway and out the back half. So,
Right.
Or just, and you do this for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And for a lot of us, this is a really good shoulder workout. But you're moving some big muscle groups in the body, and it really can help.
Oh, I'm so glad we had time to squash that one in.
Yeah.
I love, the connection with that one of breath and movement is really powerful for me. I find especially, and that one is so interesting because if I'm kind of, it gets you going. And if you're like, it calms you down, which I think is so fascinating. The brain and our systems are so fascinating to me. But what I love about that, because it works both ways, is we can just use it and know it will serve us. So we don't have to be so in our head about like, which one am I supposed to pull out? What's good for this? We can just do Fists of Fury and know that it will help our system re-regulate. We're moving our body. We're getting our breath going. It's so great. We are coming right to the end of our time. I'm so grateful to you for sharing these really practical, easy skills with us that we can add to our toolbox, because especially right now, we all need a more robust toolbox than we have had to have in the past. And I just love that it's so simple to just slow down, take some perfect breaths, do a little sensory tour, wave those fists and those shoulders, and come back to ourselves. Thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate your time and expertise. For those of you that will join us on the next episode with the next host or me, who knows? I hope you'll be back. And until then, we'll see you on the trail.
Imagine a world where every veteran finds a reason to keep going. That's the vision behind the Trail to Transformation Foundation. Help us make it real. Donate through the GoFundMe link. And as always, I'll see you on the